Welcome back, guys, to Pastor's Coffee. This is episode 28. I'm Brooks. Stiff, how has your week been?
Going pretty good. Memorial Day, we were talking a little bit before this, but Memorial Day kind of threw a wrench into the whole week. We usually don't. We usually both don't have Monday off, so that's kind of was weird. But it was a good day. Got to go see mom and um, got to spend some of the day up there. Um, Played some softball last night. I did okay, fielding wise, and then hitting wise was okay, but we lost pretty bad either way. So it was what it is. Some days you
Yeah,
just go out there and you just like, well, when the other team hits about 7 or 8 home runs and your team doesn't,
not
that'll
much you
that'll
can
do
do.
it for you. So
Yeah, yeah,
you know. So but yeah. But I'll be this Sunday we're having a youth event,
good.
softball / Bible quizzing.
Okay.
Um which I didn't really expect our youth to like Bible quizzing, but they actually get into it a little bit. Um, so that's been encouraging to see. But we'll have a Bible quizzing and then a cookout and then a softball under the lights um, over here somewhere in Cumberland. Um, so it's going to be a good Sunday, hopefully.
Yeah,
Um, I have William today. He's currently washing some vegetables right now. So hopefully he's good for the next 20 or so minutes that we do this. But how's your week been going?
it's been about as busy as I've ever had. I feel like we always say that, but yeah, the Memorial Day kind of throws everything off. I had a wedding on Monday. It was awesome. Got to see some people I haven't in a while. So that was really nice. But then I officiated the wedding last night, so there's some more preparation for that. Just weird wedding times, Monday Memorial Day, and then on a Thursday
Yeah.
it's different. But it's a great time. Still, both of those got to see some people that I haven't in a while, and it was a special time. But then I'm preaching this Sunday. Obviously, had a Wednesday night message and just some other things with preparation around. Just feel like I've been running, running, running. So another meeting later today. Um, so, and on top of that, we have our master's courses, and this was our heavy writing week. So it's
Yeah.
uh, it's
We're
been
just
been a
living it.
tough week, but it's okay. God's been good, like always.
Yeah.
I missed my softball game this week, but I
Yeah.
heard that we lost pretty bad. It was last night as well.
Oh.
And my
Well,
brother called me
that's
afterwards and said
why
did not
you
go
weren't
well.
there. So
I think that's probably the reason. That's probably the reason. But
yeah. Yeah. They didn't have you. Because
yeah,
I was trying to compare you to some baseball player, and I just can't think of a baseball player.
he left you. Yeah.
But
Um,
um, this week we want to talk about a little bit of something, and Brooke brought it up, and just and what we wanted to talk about. But um, what we want to talk about was contentment in our life, not even just in ministry or just in general life. Ministry is obviously a part of our life, but for a lot of you out there, ministry isn't a full time thing for you guys. And so, how do you stay content with the things that you've been given, the things that you do have in your life, family, friends, material objects? Um, how do you stay content, and what are your struggles with that? So I'll let you go first.
yeah, I think that this is, if I could say that one thing is my biggest struggle in life, I think it would be contentment. And I think it just kind of goes over all areas of my life because contentment really, if you're not content, that's where all those other things start to come up. Because if you're not content, then you're prideful and you're wanting more things for yourself and you're very self-centered at that point. And we all struggle with it. I get it, but pride comes before the fall. And I think about contentment for us, we're both sports guys, experience with just athletics growing up and just different things that we strive to be good at. And I think those things, it's not a bad thing in those settings, but in in those settings you're told to strive to be the best, you're told
Hmm.
to always get better in certain areas, and I think it gives you this mindset that to be never satisfied, which in those settings it does you very well because you're always trying to get better and you never want to be satisfied with where you're at. But in the Christian life, that is so far from what we want. because
Yeah.
we're supposed to be completely satisfied in Him. Piper has a quote, and again, I don't agree with everything on Piper, but I think he has some great one-liners and some great quotes. But he said, "We're most satisfied," and
Hmm.
well, he's most satisfied in us when He's glorified. What's the quote there? I don't remember exactly,
I don't
um,
remember.
it was something like we are most satisfied when Him in Him when He's glorified. But it was something special along those lines. But we are supposed to glorify Him by being content with what He's already given us. And I think in my life, and just to get completely vulnerable, in my own ministry, it's so easy to look at these other churches and they have these wild praise bands and they're packing the house, and these youth groups are having events with 400 or 500 kids, and I'm stuck with 20 to, I mean, 40 on my best day, and you look at these other churches and like, man, I wish I had that. What can I do to get to that point? When in reality, God's got me right here, exactly where He wants me to be, and I'm supposed to serve Him with what He's been given me. And if something else comes along those lines, I better be content with that, because if I continue to strive, it becomes prideful, you know.
Hmm.
And you can be content in every place that you're at. Some of you have been given much, and the Bible says, "To whom much is given, much is required." And that means to be content with what you've been given. Now, if God continues to bless you with more, praise Him for it and rejoice in it. But I think that we have to be so careful to be constantly striving for more, because that's when pride starts to set in. And then you begin to think that you've done something when really it was God that gave the increase and
Yeah,
everything. And
for
I
sure.
think that that's so tough. I hate to even admit this, but I think that people can relate, even in our relationships, things get tough sometimes, with our wives or even our family, or other things. And not that you wish for something different, but you start to think, well, what if what if it was this way? What if it was this way?
Hmm.
Well, what if doesn't matter. It's this way right here,
Yeah.
and God's given it to you. So make the best out of it and glorify Him in it, because that's what we're called to do.
Hmm.
And that's so difficult. It is very difficult in our ministry, in our marriages, and even the things that we do in our hobbies. It's very, very tough, but it's
Hmm.
it's necessary. What are some things that kind of you think of with contentment?
Um, just with in my personal life, I've especially recently just getting married at a young age. We both have, and that's something that I've been blessed with. We bought a house. I've been able to get a new car. Just financially, we've been blessed to do the things that we've been able to do. And sometimes I take that as just wanting more, and that's the danger of
Yeah,
um, being able to be financially stable in America, when America's always throwing at you the newest and greatest and latest thing,
yep,
and I always get sucked into that. So, um, and that's an area in my life I can struggle with in contentment, and just the things that I have. Um, and just with all of that, and I struggle in ministry too when you see bigger youth groups, or fancier youth groups. And I was just having a breakfast with a guy, Aaron, here, another youth pastor, and we were talking about this a little bit, and just about how we can stay content with just maybe just a couple kids that you do have. We both had smaller youth groups, um, and that we can really pour our lives into these couple kids that we may have on just like a Wednesday night. Oh, we have
hmm
a couple. Pour your life into them, um, and that's more beneficial than having a bunch of kids and not being able to do that.
yeah,
Um, and so just finding contentment in what God has given to us. And I think what we can find contentment in the most is what He's done for us on the cross. And
absolutely,
just a daily reminder of that He has sacrificed His life. Of course, He rose again from the dead 3 days later, but just the sacrifice that He made on the cross for us who don't deserve it at all. And He's given us this free gift of salvation.
yep.
Um, and if we can find contentment in that, finding contentment in a lot of other things should be a lot more simple.
It is
Um,
finished. Yeah, nothing more to be added. Not a
yeah.
single thing.
And I think something we can also overlook is that He's given us His word. Um, and to think that people who wrote the word that we wrote, obviously in a different language, but um, to see that that's been preserved over all the whole time that we've been here as a universe. To say that we had what Moses wrote back in the day, I mean, the things of Genesis are so important, and if we didn't have that, we would be completely lost.
Yeah.
And it such a foundation to what we have, and to see that God has preserved that throughout all those years, um, we have to be content in that.
Yeah.
We have a different history book that you could say, that most people don't. We have so many copies, and it's crazy, and we often overlook that.
Yeah.
Um, I think as a church, and we don't realize how important God's word is to us. And that's something I've been looking at lately with in my life, and being content that I have this book, because sometimes I'm like, oh well, I need just something new. I've heard a lot in the Bible, and I feel like I'm just repeating myself.
Yeah.
Um, but truly having, I mean, my Bible's over 1,000 pages. I think I can find something in there. Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
and so being content with that, I think, especially as a person in ministry, but just a regular, person who's not in ministry full time, um, I think that's important to have contentment in those two things. Um, and so that's kind of what I was having with
Yeah.
that.
Well,
Um,
I'll share this one story, and it was from this past week, and I think it's kind of why I even thought of this topic because I've been convicted about it. But this week, obviously, I was saying how busy it was, and to be honest with you, this is horrible thinking, but it's where my mind went this week. My Wednesday night message was the least of my worries. I mean, it just was. I'm prepping for a sermon this Sunday. I knew I had the weddings to prepare for. I knew I had a Sunday night message when I knew I'd get more kids, to come out. And it's not a good mindset, but it's where my head
yeah,
was. So Wednesday, I mean, it was a struggle to get that lesson done, just because
yeah,
I wasn't really in it, and I wasn't content with what God had given me. I wanted this to be out of the way. I didn't
yeah,
want to worry about it. And I get there, I show up, and we have let me preface this by saying there's a lot of road work coming in. So there's a lot of people coming in late to services, and we gave some time to do that. Um, so I come in, and I had to be upstairs for some different things. But I get to the youth room. We have 4 kids in there, 4 kids, and I start to get discouraged. I'm like, man, where's everybody at? And I'm already starting to get in that mindset again. Like, man, this is not going the way I wanted it to. Within 15 minutes, and this is 15 minutes late at this point, but they were stuck in traffic. We had another 12 show up. 12 kids show up late. So we have
wow,
16 now, and it's amazing, already that my head was going there. And again, didn't prepare the way I should have for my message, but I gave a clear gospel presentation and everything else. At the end of it, I have this new kid. He's only been there one other time, and the time that he came, I wasn't there. I had to be in another obligation, and I can see him. I mean, he's wearing his emotions. He's about to break down, and I know he's wanting to talk, and he ends up saying, "Can we talk one on one?" And he waits till everybody leaves the room, and I says, "Yeah, what's up, man?" And man, he just loses it. He breaks down, and he says something you said. He said, "I need that. I need to be saved." And I got to explain to him how to do that,
hmm
and I walked him through it, and then he ended up asking the Lord to save him, and he received the Lord after that, and it just makes everything worth it, because
yeah,
I'll be completely honest here. It's the second time that it's happened here that I've been able to lead someone to the Lord, and I've been here 2 years. It's not
yeah,
great statistics in our mind. It's like, man, I
yeah,
really wish that this should be happening more. If I'm always sharing the gospel, this should be
yeah,
happening more. But God gives the increase, and he was working on his heart, and he was ready. And man, I just felt so convicted after. I was like,
yeah,
man, I didn't even want to be here tonight. I didn't even want to do
yeah,
this
yeah,
message. And now this person's future is set for eternity with the Lord because God was able to use me. And
hmm
that's all that any of us can be asked to do, that just that we're open to whatever the Lord leads of us. You're not going to be content all the time. You're not going to be perfect all the time. You're going to mess up. You're going to have some bad mindsets. But if you're open to whatever the Lord is calling you to do, you'll be amazed at what he's able to do. And I just think
For
that
sure.
that's so special. So moving forward, again, I'm not going to be perfect, and then I know today there's going to be some things where I struggle with being content in
Yeah.
different things. Probably my food. If I have
Yeah.
a steak later, my steak wasn't cooked the way it should have been, but God but God gives the increase, and He's got you exactly where He wants you to be. Trust in Him, and He'll lead you and open the doors that need to be. So
For sure. Yeah, that's amazing. And that I fall into that just as much as you do, and I'm sure
yeah,
many people do. Um, and obviously that was a way that the Lord was telling you to be content with what you had. So
absolutely,
um,
absolutely.
we praise Him for that.
Yeah,
Um, but anything else you wanted to share with that?
I don't think so. Yeah. Well, speaking of a lack of contentment, as you see my sign above me, the Lakers are not in the finals, and I struggle with this every single day. LeBron is supposed to be in the finals. The trophy should be named after him for how many times he was in there. But the finals, NBA finals, is supposed to start. And what are your thoughts on this upcoming series? We have the Mavericks and the Celtics. Who do you got and why?
Um, Personally, I still think the Mavericks will do it. I think we both thought that whoever comes out of the Western Conference is gonna kill the Celtics, basically. I the Celtics, I think, will give them a run for their money. Dude, Luka and Kyrie, insane.
Combined for
I mean,
70 last night.
it was insane. I just don't see how they can do it. And again, we talked about this a little bit, but I forget if it was last week or not. Um, but I am excited to see Kyrie in Boston in the finals.
I
I
can't wait.
think it's going to be insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm ready to see that. I personally, and I'm here for the bold takes. I know we talked about a little predictions last week, but I'm just going to say my official prediction. I think the Mavericks win in 5. I'm going to give the
5.
Celtics 1, and I think they win in
Wow.
5. So I'm going to say Game 5 is over. I just I think the Celtics, but I think that the Mavericks have been on this roll. I'm going to predict it in 5.
That's bold. That is very bold.
So what are your thoughts?
I am sticking with your Mavericks prediction, obviously, um, but I'm going to give the Celtics a little bit more credit. I think this goes 7, and I think the Mavericks
Okay.
win a Game 7 in Boston,
That would be
which
insane.
will be crazy. But I think that's what's going to happen. I think it's going to come
Yeah.
down to the absolute wire. I think it'll be very close for Finals MVP between Luka and Kyrie, just because I think Luka's stats will be too good, but I think Kyrie's impact will be amazing. I think he'll hit every big shot
Yeah.
that's needed to. Um, I think Boston steals Game 1, and Mavericks have to work their way back into it. It's been talked about so much, that backcourt with Luka and Kyrie, with point guard, shooting guard. If we're sticking it straight, that it's the most skilled backcourt of all time, and it's not that close. I don't think. When you
It's
think about
insane.
Steph and Clay, most accomplished backcourt, absolutely, and probably you're still probably taking them in their prime over. Even that's tough to say though, because they had such a good supporting cast. You add Kevin Durant to that. I mean, it's amazing. But Luka and Kyrie Irving, there is nobody in the backcourt been more skilled together. Now, you would take a LeBron in his prime and Kyrie duo together still, but as far as a backcourt with point guard and shooting guard, there's nobody been more skilled than Luke and Kyrie, and it's been fun to watch, man. And I can't wait.
Just go ahead.
The atmosphere of those games in Boston, because of how much they hate Kyrie Irving, is going to be must see TV.
Yes. And probably the thing that they say we cannot repeat on here.
And there's not going to be any audio on those
Yeah.
games because they're going to have to censor every single thing.
Yeah. I really, whenever he's announced for the first time, I really hope we can see that.
It's going to be the loudest boo,
Oh,
ever. It's probably going to be like LeBron back to Cleveland that first time. I'm here for it. I can't wait.
It's gonna be exciting to watch. When's game 1?
I think they have a week. I think it's a full week.
Yeah.
So it'd be like next Tuesday, maybe. I don't know. I haven't checked it, but I think they have a full week. Um, but I the matchup that's great is, I mean, Boston has the best defensive backcourt in the league. So you've got the best offensive backcourt maybe ever versus one of the best defensive backcourts that we've
Yeah.
seen in a while. You have Drew Holiday and Derek White. So that's going to be awesome. It's like a chess match or a boxing match where just adjustments are so key. And that's when I love watching.
Yeah.
When one thing gets taken away, how do you respond? And I think that's the beauty of sports. That
Yeah.
everybody has their strengths, but what happens when one strength is taken away? What happens to the rest of the group and who can step up? That is one thing. I do not think that the Mavericks have the wing defenders to stop Tatum and Brown.
Yeah.
PJ Washington's an okay defender, not great. Derek Jones is an okay defender, not great. Derek White and Drew Holiday on the Celtics side are great defenders.
Yeah.
And you're not going to stop Luka and Kyrie, but you can kind of slow them down a little bit with those two guys.
Yeah.
I don't think that the Mavericks have that same thing, which is why I think it goes 7. But I just think Luka and Kyrie are too great to not get this series done. But
And just, I think we can play a little what if here. I think the OKC Thunder, if they would have just beat the Mavericks, they would be in the finals right now. I think they would have beaten the Timberwolves.
I think that Timberwolves matchup would have been tough too. But the Timberwolves, man, they just
didn't
had
look
a
that great.
rough series. They had a rough series, which is I think we could do this same thing. Which is matchups are everything, because
Mm-hmm.
the Timberwolves had the bigs to match up against Jokic, and that was the formula that the Lakers had a couple years ago with Dwight Howard and JaVale and Anthony Davis, and had those three guys thrown at him. Whereas if I think the Lakers would have been a great matchup for the Timberwolves, I think the Lakers would have been a great matchup for the Thunder and even the Mavericks because they didn't have anybody to stop AD. But matchups are everything, man.
They are, and I think the Thunder could have been it this year, but that's okay. I'm just biased, and
Young team though, you're going to have a lot of chances.
Yeah,
and I think
we'll have a couple
trade
more
in the
years.
offseason. I think you make a big trade. I think
Yeah.
you get rid of Giddey,
Yeah.
and you make a big splash. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be fun.
I'm excited for it. Anything on NFL you've seen?
Well, we need to get this fantasy draft started here
We do, because we need to just get the Steiner draft started. Shout out to George Steiner, who
pretty much,
absolutely
and
fleeced me.
he just messaged me asking for another trade, so he's been working the phone still.
He is.
So we need to get this draft started and get going.
I'm excited, and fantasy. I'm telling you, fantasy draft. Pretty sure it was your idea. One of the best ideas we've ever had.
What's that?
The fantasy league, not the dynasty league.
Oh, dynasty! It was my idea. Yes, it's amazing. It's
Dynasty.
awesome. Yes.
Dynasty league.
So
Dude,
much fun.
I'm thinking about 2026 and 2027 now.
Just keeps us together. It makes us have to stay around. So that's cool.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome.
Come on, Liam. We're ending the show. You got anything
Hey,
to
buddy.
say? Here, why don't you put this up?
Have you been staying on top of your workouts? Where's your protein shake? I don't see it.
It's right here.
Okay.
He's got protein in here.
All right, we got ball handling and shooting tomorrow at 4.
We'll make it down.
Okay.
But anyway, guys, thank you guys for listening to us. This one will require a little more editing due to Liam, but that's okay. So if there's a couple breaks in between, they're like, wow, how did they go from there to there?
Yeah.
So make sure to check out our social media, Instagram, Facebook. We don't have a Twitter, which is it called Twitter anymore?
X. Yeah, we should do that. Yeah, we'll make one soon.
Probably should get on there. But anyways, like those, we post some reels. Tell you when the new episodes are out. We're also on Spotify. You can go check us out there if you don't want to look at us. But we'll see you guys next week, and I hope you guys have a good week and stay content.
Liam's content. Look at the SEO.
Boy, chilling.